Namaste and good morning. Let's go live on another bicycle live stream, Saturday, April the 13th at at 6:56 a.m. and I've ridden 23 kilometres, and it's a reasonably nice autumn morning. So, straight into today's topic. As people worldwide are aware, there was a very strong, necessary, peaceful protest that was held on Monday in Australia. And good morning, my love. Thank you for watching. Also, good morning to Terry, and also good morning to Pip. So this protest produced amazing awareness, which I have to say I'm incredibly impressed by the courage of all the activists that took place, the planning that was involved, the necessity of it, the peacefulness of it, all of these things. Very, very impressed. When I first knew about it, I was concerned about how it would go, but I must say I was very, very impressed. So then this is necessary, obviously. Let's just put a bit of background here. It is necessary to bring to the forefront and to sometimes do this in a way that peacefully causes disruption. It is necessary to do it in order to wake people up. This is a technique that has been used throughout history when there have been rights that need to be addressed, and there are many great examples I don't need to go into. Most of us are familiar with all the different examples, from women's rights to gay rights to black rights to I'm sure there's plenty of others. So throughout history there has been the need to stand up and say what is happening is not right. There needs to be a change. We would like to make you aware of this, etc. So I understand the logic and the reasoning behind it, and you know, when in the time between when I film this live stream and when you watch it, if you're not watching it live, if an hour has gone by, then 8 million land animals will have been slaughtered for no reason other than taste, which absolutely defies any sense of compassion, morality, ethics, any of that. It just defies all of those areas simply because of the taste addiction of most people to continue supporting an industry that has no right, has no respect for the rights. Good morning, Kairos. You think I'm early? God, I'm late this morning. Oh God, I've got traffic. I've got a bicycle rider stuck in front of me. I'm late. I'm late this morning because I didn't get on the bike till 5:30. Last Saturday I was on at 4:30. Anyway, because people continue to support an industry that slaughters 8 million land animals an hour and slaughters so many aquatic animals that they can't even be counted in numbers, but are actually counted in tons. Because people continue to support this for no reason other than completely selfish reasons, there is a need to rise up and say this is not acceptable. Humanity cannot live like this peacefully if this is how we treat other living beings, because what we kill kills us. So Monday's protests were brilliantly done, and I want to talk about the psychology of the difference between those protests and the protests in history, and why that difference accounted for the resistance that was met. And good morning, Ishtar. So there was a strong resistance met, and in some cases a very disappointingly strong resistance, in that I saw some photos of someone who's got a vehicle like in the way that I've got a vehicle with vegan stickers and that on it, and somebody had actually taken to it with an axe, and they had smashed the windows, they had, destroyed the bodywork. It was an incredible psychological response to a peaceful protest. So this is what I want to just discuss this morning. Why is there such a resistance? And I deliberately titled it Meeting, M-E-A-T, Meeting Resistance, and the psychology behind it. So there is no argument about the necessity of the protests, and in order to wake people up, to make them disruptive, so that people actually have to stop and think about what they're contributing to, and to link that back to the movie Dominion, which had a huge increase within 48 hours. Within 48 hours, it had 53,000 new views. So that's an incredible indication of people taking on board the message and deciding to find out for themselves. And also another interesting thing was that the Herald Sun put on their page, on their website, a link to Dominion, to the trailer of Dominion, which is amazing that a mainstream media organisation did that. But they took it on board, because we're not dealing with faceless people. We're dealing with people that are like you and I, that have not yet made the connection. And this ties in with part of the psychological reason why there was such an angry resistance that was poured out in the press, especially in comments sections. And it goes like this. Let's see if I can explain it. The difference between what was asked of people with social change movements such as supporting women's rights and supporting gay rights, etc. The difference of what was asked of people is that it did not directly, in those situations, people were not being asked to directly change their own behaviours. And this is a very, very important thing it's a very important thing to understand. People were being asked to respect the rights, in those cases, of other people to live in a way that wasn't being respected either legally or through society. People were being asked to respect the rights of other people to have the same rights as them. And this is completely understandable and completely acceptable. And so it should be. So this was what was being asked. It did not involve a personal change necessarily on behalf of the person being asked to support those rights, other than just to understand the importance of it to the people that were oppressed, like slavery, for instance, to understand the importance of it and to no longer support it. So, okay, that's understandable. That's the cases that have happened in history. And what it means is that, people wake up and say, yeah, you know what, you're right. Slavery's not a good thing. We shouldn't be supporting that. And, you're right. Women should have equal rights. Why the hell haven't they had them before? These sort of things, So, okay, that's fine. The difference with what happened with Monday's protests is that even though it was not stated, people took it on board, and this is where the aggression and the violence and the hate comments and that came from. People took it on board that they were being asked, when I say people, I'm thinking people that are pre-vegan, currently non-vegan, pre-vegan. They took it on board. They took it to mean that these protests were saying to them that you must change. And that brings up a psychological difference and a psychological hurdle to what previously had been experienced with other changes. Ishtar says maybe we shouldn't label ourselves and just say why we are vegan. Perhaps the labelling allows people to group us, yes, and therefore marginalise us. Are you vegan? No, I don't eat meat because I value, because I value human and animal life, and that all of human life is needed for our survival. Very good. Very good. Yes, that's definitely an area where being labelled or categorised or whatever can cause an us and them situation. And that is actually what we saw start to happen on Monday. There was an us and them situation happening. It was, I am being asked to change my behaviour. Now, we meet an incredible uphill resistance when we try to change someone's behaviour without them wanting to do it. It is essentially impossible. You really cannot, it's been shown through history, you really cannot change a person's behaviour through any form of force or coercion. Religions have tried it with religious uprisings. Cults have tried it, and there's probably other examples I'm not thinking of. It's, at best, what you get is people agreeing to follow the demands that are being made of them, but they're only agreeing to do it to keep the peace. They're not changing their mind or their heart. They're just doing it so that they can basically survive. So that's the massive difference between trying to force someone and trying to educate someone. So despite the protests being peaceful and despite them being necessary, people that have a very ingrained, what would be the best description, I guess, I'll go a bit further, so I'll go more direct. All of us falsely identify with our false ego, and all of us tend to clash against each other because we all think we have a right to do what we want to do. And when somebody thinks that we are trying to step on that and take that away from us, that is like taking away our power. And even though the protests weren't asking people directly to do it, even though the idea behind the protest was brilliant in that it was asking people to watch Dominion, to see what they're contributing to so that they can be educated and make the change, and then that's the way to change. Even though that's the case, it was still met with a huge resistance because this is a different situation to other situations of change, in that we are expecting somewhere along the line that the person is going to stop doing something that they take pleasure in. And it would be a similar thing if we were saying to people, well, okay, we want you to stop having sex now. I know you enjoy it, but we've decided it's not a good idea, or whatever the reason was. It would be a similar thing. It would be met with huge resistance. It would be met with a lot of hate. So this is what the psychological difference was between other issues of change and this issue. This is what you'll see, a common thing people saying is, we have, what's a common response? They say, we have nothing against your right to be a vegan, but don't tell us what we can and can't eat. And there you have the crux of the matter in that statement, and I see it come up again and again. Don't tell us what to do. When people feel like they're being told what to do, when their false ego feels like it's sort of under attack, that's when this resistance comes up, and when people dig their heels in and protect themselves. This is a natural response of the false ego because it feels its identity, its very false identity is being attacked, and it will go into self-defense mode. It's an automatic response from the false ego. So how do we get around that? That's a good question, because Monday's protests were brilliant. They were peaceful, they were necessary, but they showed from a psychological standpoint the incredible uphill battle for someone to take on board something that they're not ready to acknowledge or look at, because it means change, and it means they feel it's an attack on their identity, even though it's not about them, even though it's about the animals. The problem is that they're not just having to say, okay, I agree, we should have equal rights for animals. That's true, that's great, excellent, now I'll go back to eating my meat. No, because people are making the connection, and that connection is what they're resisting. They're like, okay, you want the animals to have all their rights, to live, to love, to play, to grow. You want that, but that means I have to stop eating my meat, which I love, and I have to stop eating my cheese, which I love, and those sort of things. That brings up the huge resistance. So just be aware of that when we're dealing with people. Is there an answer to how to get around that? Well, statistics have shown that the most effective forms of activism are documentaries, which is what the peaceful protests were linking back to, which is a brilliant idea. Link them back to Dominion. So documentaries and recommendations from friends and family who have already made the change. They are the two most effective forms of activism that will actually, people will open up to, because they don't feel like they're being told what to do. They're just taking in information. And we take in the information, we process it, and then somewhere along the line it clicks for us, and we go, yeah, actually that's right. Yeah, that's terrible what's happening to the animals. I don't want to support it anymore. I decide to change. That's how we change. That's the psychology of change. It doesn't work when we say, you must change. And that's an inadvertent response that happened from Monday's protests. So thank you for watching, and I just want to say I'm incredibly impressed by the courage, the strength shown by all the activists in Monday's protests. I think it's amazing what you've done. I take my hat off to you. For days afterwards, the media coverage was immense, mainstream media coverage, so it has achieved this goal of waking people up through the mainstream media. So fantastic, hats off to you. I look forward to it continuing, and you know, that creating that awareness that way, so that people are given the information to make the necessary change to choose compassion over cruelty and life over death. So thank you for watching. May you have a great day. Live vegan and save lives, and I'll speak to you soon. Ahimsa.